Howdy, it's Ari with Land Insights, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the tooltip. When you're conducting market research, we'll be talking about all of the different tooltips in here to a degree. We'll be addressing where you can use that in the platform, the impact it has, and how to leverage it to the best of your ability. So let's go ahead and look at the tooltip preferences on the far right of your screen when you do log into the platform. The far left column, you'll notice, has a lot of parameters that are very specific to a more broad analysis. This can be used on the county level or the zip code level, but what's beneficial about all of these is even though you might be able to use them on smaller data sets, they can all be used on a larger data set. So think county-wide, maybe zip code-wide analysis when we're looking at 0.2 to 100 acres. It's useful to see all of this. Now, we can also use this on other larger acreage ranges like 5 to 100 or maybe 5 to 10,000 acres as well. But as we drill down into certain markets, whether that's a county or zip code, we can still use these. So that's the benefit of using these data points in the first column. When we start looking at the second column and the third column, you'll notice that it resembles the median and price per acre figures, as well as what we like to call our Gini, which we'll talk about shortly. In terms of median and price per acre, you have to just consider the data set that you're looking at. The median is always going to be in the middle, so there's always going to be data above it and below it. And so for that reason, when we're looking at a data set that's just very large, whether it's 0.2 to 100 or one of those larger acreage ranges, this data just becomes less and less useful. So if I were to look for the median price from 0.2 to 100 acres, the chances are it's not going to have a real representation of that market. It's also not going to really give me any useful information other than maybe a soft check to make sure, hey, this market has properties that are generally middle market. If it's sitting too low, with price data or it's sitting too high, we'll run into some other issues. For example, we might not find ourselves looking at a county that we can make profit in, or we might find ourselves in a county or a market that ultimately is too difficult to get leads in. So for that reason, the median, the price per acre data points, all of these will be more useful when we're looking at a smaller data set. So let's go ahead and choose some data points initially just to talk about how we would use that to find good markets. The first thing I would do is include active. I'm going to include pending. I like seeing that current demand, and I like also seeing that in the sell-through rate as well. The pending and sold amounts here. This is very useful when you're thinking about how many comps are in a market. But sell-through rate really shines when we were looking for how quickly that market is really turning. So both of these kind of work in tandem, and you can imagine if you're only looking at sell-through rate, you might miss the fact that some counties or markets have no data. And if you're only looking at sold amounts, you might be missing the fact that the sell-through rate sucks. So we could really drill down by looking at these together. And what I like to do is focus on maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, and then include the sell-through rate data points for maybe pending, and maybe 3 months or 6 months as well. This gives me a good, accurate representation of what's been happening for the past half a year, and I can see that current demand that I'm interested in seeing as well, just to make sure the county or the zip code that I'm looking at is currently in demand. Otherwise, I might also choose a days on market data point. I'm hovering over 6 months in all of these different data points, so I'm going to choose that one as well. It's important to know that this is speaking about the average days on market for all the comps sold in the last 6 months. That's a little bit different than sell-through rate. In terms of the median data points or the price per acre, generally I won't get too hung up on looking at this initially. I might include a price for the median, or maybe even a median acreage range, but it's not going to be, it's really not going to be as pertinent. So this is by no means gospel. You can use your creativity here to find markets, whether counties or zips, that you like, and maybe that does include looking at the median information or the price per acre information. So just keep that in mind as you look around. The beautiful thing about this is now we can start analyzing these data markets with this data. And the way I like to look at this is I like looking from the top down on my tooltip. I like analyzing it kind of like a story where I'm understanding that county more and more as I go down the tooltip. And I'm using these data points to disqualify whether or not I like this market. So, or disqualify this market and understand whether or not it's something that I can justify targeting. If I can't justify targeting it, I really don't need to spend too much more time looking into that market unless I want to drill in a tiny bit deeper, look at the zip codes, and just do kind of a final pulse check on that market to make sure, hey, maybe is there one zip code that's outperforming the rest, or maybe is there anything worth marketing to here? So that is using the tooltip for your general market analysis. If you do find a market, let's say you do choose a market and you come down here and you filter for that. Once you have this data set, technically now this is a good point in time to analyze these zip codes in their entirety. You can look at 0.2 to 100 acres, maybe look at 5 to 100, but this is going to allow you to get a read on each zip code and understand whether or not it's worth marketing to and worth spending your marketing dollars. Pigeon Forge is just very competitive in Tennessee, and so in this particular zip code, I might avoid it. But you can see that some of these zip codes really carry the brunt of the work in this entire market. So that's just something to consider, knowing that this zip code down here is likely the largest zip code, or if not a close second, and yet it has hardly any comps. It's mostly mountain ranges. So that's just something to consider. You really want to focus on marketing to the places that have proof, and just show that if you were to get a deal there, it would likely sell. So just keep that in mind as you're using the data, the data points on the tooltip. You really want to be using these efficiently. Once you find maybe a county or a zip code that you like, you can really make sure that you're adding those to your My Markets, and that's where you'll do kind of a secondary review on those markets, or you're able to. There's plenty of investors who use this and kind of use that at scale in order to get volume out the door. And so there's no further analysis needed. But there will be other investors, and this might include you, that prefer to say, okay, now that I like a certain zip code or maybe a certain county, I want to drill into each acreage range and I want to see maybe different data points. Maybe I want to heat map this differently. And this can happen on the market research page. I generally do this on my markets. And that's only because usually when we're on our My Markets, we're only looking at data that we like, right? We're only looking at markets that we've already vetted and called good. So in this situation, I would be able to heat map by a different data point. Since I'm looking at a smaller data set, I'd be able to prioritize based on this or make decisions based on this. And I'd also be able to look at some other more pertinent data points that now, since I'm looking at a 2 to 5 acre range, makes sense. Now I can actually use the median active price or compare that against the median sold price. I can even use the median price per acre. I can look at that compared to the Gini as well. And so there's a lot more opportunity here when we're looking at a smaller acreage range. It just starts out with that more broad analysis using some of those data points on the left-hand side. So that is kind of a breakdown of using the tooltip on market research and My Markets. When we do actually go over to our campaigns area, you'll notice that these data points also exist there. We'll talk about that a little bit more in our campaigns video, so just keep an eye out for that video. You can go ahead and hop over there if you'd like, and just get some information on why the tooltip would even be leveraged at all in that area of the platform. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to us at hello@landinsights.co, or you can always reach out on the bottom right of your platform.